Well. Okay, so WoW's 30th anniversary event was a little bit grander than we thought it was going to be. Not quite the full replacement for BlizzCon, which is obviously what this was, given the time of year it came out. And also pointed to there maybe not being a BlizzCon next year, or if there is a BlizzCon next year, it will be maybe not as WoW-focused because the midnight reveal comes during the summer, which points to Gamescom. But what they did do was kind of just scary a little bit, I think. Let's go through the really high points, obviously, before we get to the elephant in the room, because there's been discussions about player housing now for, I think, forever, since World of Warcraft came out, so we'll get there in a second. First of all, the Goblin Raid looks fantastic, and the Goblin Zone. They know they're hitting the mark here with goblins. People have been dying for really good goblin stuff for ages. For absolutely ages, ever since we got the new Goblin Starter Zone. It's fantastic, it's silly, it's goofy, it's funny, lots of explosions. They promised literally lots of explosions and things. We're going to get to Drift. I imagine for those people who have not played Guild Wars 2, this is a take on their roller beetle mounts. If you never played Guild Wars 2, I do recommend it. They have the best mount system in MMOs. It's phenomenally good. They're really, really incredible with their instant cast mounts that all have specific, really cool design and functionality. And their roller beetle goes at exceptional speeds. It can drift. There has been a racing community in that game based on the roller beetle since time immemorial. It's always been there. So I'm guessing that's what they're doing here. And what also I think is a fantastic way of getting people off flying mounts without being too miffed about it, right? Flying mounts are ridiculously convenient, especially the dragon flying ones. We love them. They're so cool. How do you get people off them? You make something more fun. You make something that people actually want to do. Design their own car by getting Need for Speed World of Warcraft. This is great, and this tech has already existed. And what does Blizzard do best? And what did they stop doing for so long? Was essentially looking at what the competition and what the newcomers are doing and going, that's pretty cool. We could do it better. And that's what Blizzard built World of Warcraft on the back of. What was RuneScape doing? What were these games doing? And let's do that, but let's do it better. And they've definitely got that return to that ideology here, because everything we saw was like, okay, I know what that is. I've seen it before, and a Blizzard spin on it, I'm totally okay with. They actually didn't spend too much time during this anniversary event dedicated to the other games, Rumble and Hearthstone. They had some. It was like 40% of the show was dedicated to that. They didn't even spend that much time going back in time and sort of self-congratulating themselves for being around for 30 years of Warcraft. I thought that was going to be a good portion of the show when there's like little pats on the back for themselves. Wasn't that at all. They actually did that during the pre-show where they had that kind of history lesson, and then when the show started, they were like, nope, this is all new stuff. This is what we're going to be doing. There's a new Hearthstone expansion. They did, coming back to the BlizzCon thing a little bit, they spoke the name that should not be mentioned, right? They spoke the Voldemort of Blizzard. They brought up Starcraft for quite a long time. And I actually thought, you're taking the piss, because there's a lot of people out there, myself included, who are more than ready for StarCraft 3 to show its head and come in as strong as StarCraft 2 did. I am ready and waiting for that, especially considering the RTS scene, like on the grand scale of warfare, has not been that great in the gaming scene for a long time. A resurgence there. MOBAs have like dominated that kind of era for a while, or that genre, I should say. Would love to see that. And they never mention it. It was like the black sheep. Like at last year's BlizzCon, there was no poster, there was no signage. Like you can occasionally see like, oh, there's the statue of Kerrigan, because of course they've had that built years and years ago. But no StarCraft mention anywhere. It was weird. It was really weird. And now they're talking about it. They're bringing it into Hearthstone. I'm like, there is a BlizzCon next year. I kind of wonder what's going to be there. Because now you're talking about it again. It could be nothing, but like, usually they're like, but just don't mention StarCraft. We're not doing anything with StarCraft. And now they're talking about it. I'm like, okay. All right, that's pretty cool. Coming back to World of Warcraft, we got some of the usual stuff, which is great. Season of Discovery's being expanded. They are restarting WoW Classic again, so I guess we can see, depending on the success, obviously, they're not going to do it if it's not profitable and not interesting, is we might have now officially entered the era where World of Warcraft just sort of recycles and recycles. MOP Classic is an expected addition, and I am going to be playing that. I haven't touched WoW Classic since the actual launch, where I had fun in the nostalgia, but TBC, which is when I truly fell like deeply in love with the gameplay of the game, really just testing the Burning Crusade Classic didn't do anything for me, and I was like, I don't want to play this because it's ruining my memories of the game. Like, I consider TBC to be kind of one of the pinnacle moments of my World of Warcraft play, and replaying it, given the knowledge and experience I have these days, 20 years later, is spoiling it. So I left Classic alone then. However, Mr. Pandaria is when I had my children, so I did not get to enjoy Mr. Pandaria properly. Certainly its raiding environment. I didn't get to do that. I didn't get to prog Throne of Thunder, something Morgan Day openly mocked me for over dinner, by the way. He was like, well, you didn't do Throne of Thunder. I was like, the hell, Morgan? Like, twist the knife. So Mock Classic is something interesting. However, as we all know, then comes kind of the dark times, right? And they can probably expect a dramatic fall off in Classic players at that point when we get to like Wars of Draenor and stuff. And so maybe now they're starting to recycle it. And seemingly the reaction is very positive from the people who are more than happy, seemingly, to just go around the spin cycle again. Just live in that Blizzard dishwasher and just go round and round and round and just keep doing it again. If that's a vibe for a lot of people, I personally don't get it. That's fine. More power to you. More power to you. If they really like it and they just want to keep reliving this experience over and over again, go for it. And I'm sure there are going to be people out there who have like a fresh Classic account, a current Classic account, a retail account, and they're like raiding on these all the time. They're doing like Molten Core over here, and then they're going off to Throne of Thunder on this one, and then they're doing whatever the Goblin Raid's going to be named. I can't remember what they called it. They're going to be doing that, and like their whole life at that point is just like raiding and doing stuff in World of Warcraft every single day, every single night from now until the end of time. And then at some point they'll have like 2 Classic accounts or whatever's going to happen. No mention of a remix. Was kind of looking forward to a mention of a remix. However, did get a weird symbol on the roadmap, which could be another remix. I would love to see. I think WoD remix could work really, really well. A very short and condensed version of WoD, looking at all those raids, doing really silly power-ups. I imagine the next remix will be much more grounded, which isn't what we kind of wanted. Or maybe they've learned the lessons, like people want to get wacky and weird on remix. Let them do that. We'll see what they do. Remix is coming back. We know Plunderstorm's coming back. They already announced that. Whatever that weird symbol is, it's certainly some sort of new idea. We know they laid off a lot of staff who made Plunderstorm. I forget the name of the company right now, but Chris will put it up for me because it's on the tip of my tongue. But they've laid a lot of those guys off, so we're probably not going to see something that's like Plunderstorm. Plunderstorm is built, it's done, and they can reuse and modify it as the way they want to do it. So something new is coming up there. So that'll be interesting. All right. Overall, very, very good. Everything they announced, very, very happy with. Really cool. Let's talk about it. Player housing is coming to World of Warcraft. Right. Let me explain the intro. I'm not down on this. I'm worried about this because they have announced it now. We're not going to hear about Midnight now for 6 to 7 months, which is probably when they're going to show off some more of this stuff. And then Midnight is probably another 12 months-ish after that, right? We're going to be looking at a sort of 2-year expansion cycle. We're 6 months-ish into the War Within, which means it's going to be a while. And all they did was tease it. They just said, it's coming, essentially, right? And at that point, I was talking to... Obviously, I watched this live. I then just checked Twitter briefly. Every message from every person who has touched World of Warcraft ever was about player housing. And I had the most disgusting flashback to Garrisons being announced. It was like PTSD. Because the imagination, when you're just told, WoW is getting player housing... Everybody pictures immediately what this is going to look like. And in the preview video, they did show some stuff. They showed some statuettes that you could put up. They showed an armory rack, similar to what we had in Garrisons. They showed some dragon heads, similar to what we had in Garrisons and things like that. They've showed those things. Why am I being pessimistic about this? First of all, I am tempering my expectations because there's 2 things going on here. Let's do this one first. They are going up against some very stiff competition. Established competition, right? It's not just a case of WildStar that built a phenomenal housing system. Don't expect that from World of Warcraft. That the game was built from the ground up to include that sort of functionality. World of Warcraft was not, all right? And that's tough stuff to include. Don't expect it to be like that. But they're going up against Final Fantasy XIV, which is not ideal, but it is extremely good, right? It's extremely good, and people have found some exceptional ways, including using third-party plugins, which I could talk about because this is a WoW video, of making anything you want, including breaking the bounds of the house and building stuff in the void, which is like some of the most exceptional jumping puzzles and all kinds of things. And the events I have put on with the talented people who build houses in Final Fantasy XIV, including people recreating Resident Evil 2, for Christ's sake, including workable puzzles. That's what they're going up against. They're also going up against Guild Wars 2, which just added player housing last month or so. They just added it in based on the back of their guild housing system, and it's very, very good. It's very, very good. And people are going to be expecting Blizzard to do what we talked about at the beginning of this video, is do it better. Now, here's the thing. I have spoken to a lot of people at Blizzard, right? Higher ups and a lot of devs, especially when walking around having drinks at things like BlizzCon and things like that, as people coming on work on this. The general vibe, although never specifically, that I got informed when we talk about these things is like, the problem is WoW was never designed ever to accommodate this kind of functionality. And therefore, adding it in is really ridiculously hard without just reworking like the game from the ground up to accommodate this sort of player interactive functionality into the game. So the way they got around it in Warlords of Draenor with the garrisons is that they basically built near enough every variation that people could come up with by just having set plot locations where you could plonk a scrapyard, you could plonk a stables, right? And it was done, and it goes here. And if you remember those, they had very specific plots that you could put certain types of large, medium, small building, right? And they were just predetermined. There was essentially, although you ultimately could choose which buildings you had, there was not really customization in the form that we think about, which is like positioning the lamp here, right? If we look at like a recent game that just came out, like Wayfinder had a housing system in there which allowed what we're talking about. It's like, if I want a table in my apartment building, whatever we're going to get, it showed like a standard Warcraft house, an Alliance Horde variation, is that you want to put the chair here, the table here. You want to then put a rug under it. You want to put the fireplace here. You want to put this here. You want to put this here. The way they did it with garrisons is like, well, they have to be in predetermined locations. This is where your weapons rack will be. And that's the way we can get around it. Because they're not really picking and choosing where they want things to be in the world. We're telling them it can go exactly here and determining what can go there in the first place so we make sure it all works. And generally speaking, people were not happy with garrisons, if we're being kind. I think we're being kind there. They weren't very happy with that. But the limitations of the game were what were holding them back. Now, I am absolutely not going to deny that that magic exists and they might have done some major wizardry and some genius over there has cracked it. Like, we can do this. Because if this isn't up to the competition standards, it's going to be a meme. It's going to be a full meme. It has to be. But I am setting my expectations of this astronomically low. As much as I would love to be like, dude, they're definitely going to have it so you can, if you go to one person's house, plot, whatever we're getting, it looks astronomically different to everybody else's, which is what you do get in the other games. It's like you can go from a Borg cube in FF14, like a fully Borg cube with science lab and vats with people in it, all the way to the prettiest, most modern apartment ever, all the way to a weeby, plushy nightmare landscape, right? You could do that in an instant. You could swap between them. That's the creativity people have over there. That's what people want over in Warcraft. That level of creativity. I'm just preparing myself, and I think you should too, to be like, don't overdo this. Don't suspect that, like, I'll be able to have, like Guild Wars 2, every mount that you have that you've collected roaming around the lands and doing things. Like, we have the things in the garrisons with stables where they could stay in there, but, like, actually roaming, and maybe your Swiss Spectral Tiger sleeps by the fireplace, right? I want him to roam here, which is what you could do in Wayfinder. You could have that happening. Like, all these little things, I'm like, temper your expectations, because they've announced it, they gave zero detail other than it's housing. What does that mean? I don't know. I really don't know. So, on the one hand, they got the competition, and two, what can the game actually do? Because that was the information I was kind of fed, is like, and it could have been like bamboozle, it could have been like, we've told Mike, like, you can't even do it, but we've been working on it for the last 7 years. Could totally have been that, and that's fine. That's part of the game, and I'm okay with that, if that was the case. So I'm just keeping my expectations down here. That's all I'm saying. The other thing, though, and this is important, and we're not getting this till midnight. However, it has to work. And that sounds like a weird thing to bring up, but recently, a lot of the content that's been added to the game hasn't worked. I'm a little fortunate. I was on vacation when the anniversary event started, but all I was getting was constant DMs, messages, tweets, regardless, just straight here like, dude, this is the most broken I've seen the game ever. And this has been a consistent thing. We actually did like 2-3 months ago, which was like having a look at the whole MMO landscape. We did that video, and in there, we talked about the fact that they are pumping so much content into World of Warcraft, and the roadmap clearly shows that that is not slowing down. This train is on the rails, and it is going, and it is going to be consistently pumping content, is that it keeps coming out in a broken state. Even with things that are blatantly obvious on the PTR that are broken, are still making it into live, and it's a big problem. This is a huge new feature, right? Unquestionably, this is what's going to sell Midnight for the people who have still not looked at War Within. This is what's going to sell it, is player housing. People are going to resubscribe just to check it out, for sure. And so, if this is broken, like garrisons were for a week, like, let's not forget that garrisons were broken for a week. They need to nail this. Like, that's all I'll say. That's my pessimism. I'm keeping my expectations low, and I also think they need to land this so nicely. They need to land it clean, and it's just like, it just works, and it's so cool, and that's the feedback they've got to be aiming for here. If this lands in a fiery wreck of snowballs, right, if this is full-on Shadowlands, oof, it's just going to be another, yeah, they did our playhouses, it's busted, it's garbage. So that's where I'm at. I do want to point out, you've probably seen this PC in the background. That is xal'atath, by the way, and we're giving this away. We're totally giving this away, so check in the description for that. This is in association with Scan. They provide all our hardware here. Scan computers, phenomenal if you're in the EU or UK. If you're looking for PC hardware, they're big friends of us, right? I'll go full sellout for them because they're great. I bought stuff from there for years before we ever worked with them. It was my go-to, and they've done a custom xal'atath 3XS machine. So we're going to be giving that away. That closes December 5th, by the way. You don't have too long to enter the competition for that, but there's that bad boy. It's coming directly from me, so if you win it and you want us to add something in from us, we could totally do that as well. Love to see your thoughts on this, because right now, speculation running wild, bro, everywhere. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.